The Veloth survivors were scattered across a dozen medical ships in orbit around a nearby neutral planet. Doctors from 6 different species worked around the clock to treat the wounded. Counselors tried to help the traumatized. News reporters from across the galaxy fought for interviews. The story had spread like fire. 5 humans, 50,000 survivors. Against the Drekker swarm, in the Great Hall of the Galactic Union, an emergency session had been called. Every seat was filled. Every species was watching. Ambassador Rena stood at the center of the chamber. She had refused medical treatment until she could address the council. Her arm was still in a sling. Her fur was still dusty. She did not care. "You watched us die," she said. Her voice was quiet but carried through the entire hall. "When my people called for help, you calculated the odds and decided we were not worth saving." The representatives shifted uncomfortably. Some could not meet her eyes. "You said no one would send their warriors to certain death for strangers," Rena continued. "You were wrong." She pressed a button and security footage began playing on the massive screens around the chamber. The council watched in silence. They saw Captain Kang hold a position alone against hundreds of Drekker while his team reached the bunker. They saw Corporal Shin carry a rifle that was almost as tall as she was and use it to take down enemies at impossible distances. They saw Lieutenant Park smile as she planted explosives in the middle of a firefight. They saw Sergeant Beak fight with his bare hands after his weapons ran empty. They saw Medic O perform surgery on a wounded Veloth child while Drekker attacked the walls around him. They saw 5 humans do what entire armies had not been willing to do. The Torvan representative was the first to speak. His voice was smaller than it had been during the first meeting. What are these creatures?" Director Chomai stood. She had been waiting in the back of the chamber, watching quietly. "They are human," she said simply. "They are what happens when a species evolves on a world that tries to kill them every day. Earthquakes, floods, disease, war. Our planet has been trying to destroy us for hundreds of thousands of years. And every time, we refuse to die." She walked to the center of the chamber and stood beside Rena. "You asked why we came," Cho continued. "You thought we were stupid, primitive. You calculated that no logical species would risk themselves for strangers." She paused. "You were correct. What we did was not logical. It was human." The Khazari representative leaned forward. "But why? What do you gain from this?" Cho was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer. "Long ago, my grandmother told me a story. She said that when she was young, there was a great disaster in her country. Thousands of people lost their homes. They had nothing. No food, no water, no hope." Cho's eyes grew distant. "And then strangers came. People from other nations. People who had no reason to help. They brought supplies. They built shelters. They stayed until the crisis passed." She looked at the council. "My grandmother asked them why. They said, because you needed help and we could give it." That was enough. The chamber was silent. "Humans are not perfect," Cho admitted. "We have wars. We have cruelty. We make terrible mistakes. But somewhere in our hearts, there is something that cannot stand to watch the helpless suffer. We have a word for it: compassion. It is not logical. It does not calculate odds. It simply acts." Ambassador Rena stepped forward. "The Galactic Union has a request for Earth," she announced. "We ask that you establish a permanent rapid response division. A team that will answer distress calls when no one else will." Murmurs ran through the chamber. "What makes you think we would agree to such a thing?" the Torvan asked. Director Cho smiled. "We already did. The only question is whether the Union wants to officially support it." The vote was unanimous. For the first time in galactic history, Every species agreed on something. 2 weeks later, a search team finally reached the collapsed cavern on the Veloth homeworld. They did not expect to find anything. The orbital strike had leveled everything within a kilometer radius. The Broodmother's body was vaporized. The rock had melted and reformed into solid glass. But one of the searchers, a young Veloth engineer, noticed something strange in the rubble. A heat signature. Weak but present. They dug for 6 hours. Captain Kang Do-yoon was buried under 3 meters of debris. His body was broken in more places than the doctors could count. His left arm was gone. His internal organs were failing. By every medical standard, he should have been dead. But his heart was still beating. How is this possible? The Veloth medical officer asked as they rushed him to the emergency ship. No creature could survive this. Medic O was waiting when the ship arrived. He had refused to leave the system until they found the captain, dead or alive. When he saw the stretcher, his face showed no surprise. "I told you," he said quietly, taking control of the medical team. "I have never lost a patient I could reach in time." The surgery lasted 18 hours. 3 times, Kang's heart stopped. 3 times, O brought him back. The Veloth doctors watched in amazement as the human medic performed procedures they had never seen before. When it was finally over, O sat beside the recovery bed and waited. 4 days later, Captain Kang opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was his team. Park was standing by the window, arms crossed. Shin sat in a corner, cleaning her rifle. Beak was in a wheelchair, his wounds still healing. O was checking medical monitors. "Mission report," Kang rasped. His voice was barely a whisper. Park's calm smile returned for the first time since the cavern. All civilians evacuated. 0 Veloth casualties after extraction began. Kang closed his eyes. "Good." Shin spoke without looking up from her rifle. "The council voted to create a permanent rescue division. Director Cho wants us to lead it. After you recover," O added quickly. Kang was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked, "How long was I dead?" "You were never dead," O said. "Your heart stopped a few times, but that is not the same thing." "Technically dead," Park corrected. "Technically is not actually," O insisted. Beak laughed from his wheelchair, then winced at the pain. "It is good to have you back, Captain." A knock came at the door. Ambassador Rena entered, carrying a small box. She approached the bed slowly, her eyes wet. "Captain Kang," she said, "on behalf of the Veloth people, I present you with the Star of Mercy." She opened the box to reveal a medal made of pure white crystal. "It is our highest honor. It has never been given to anyone outside our species." She placed it gently on the table beside him. "My people will remember," she said. "For as long as our civilization exists, we will remember that when we cried for help, Earth sent monsters to save us." Kang looked at the medal. Then he looked at his team. Then he looked at Rena. "Not monsters," he said quietly. "Just humans." 3 months later, the Silent Wake 2 launched from Earth's orbital station. It was bigger than the original, faster, better armed. But it still had the same crew. Captain Kang sat in the commander's chair. His left arm had been replaced with a prosthetic that worked better than the original. His body was covered in new scars that joined the old ones. He was already reviewing the next mission briefing. Lieutenant Park checked the navigation systems. Course set for the outer rim. Estimated arrival, 6 hours. Corporal Shin cleaned her rifle in the corner. Some things never changed. Sergeant Beak tested his own new prosthetic leg. It was stronger than flesh, he had discovered. He was not sure how he felt about that yet. Medic always his medical supplies for the 4th time. He liked things to be in order. The communicator crackled. A distress signal was coming through. Someone somewhere was calling for help. Captain Kang looked at his team. They looked back at him. "Ready?" he asked. "Always," they answered. The ship jumped into hyperspace. 5 humans against the darkness of the galaxy. Somewhere, someone was crying for help. And Earth would answer. The great cavern opened before them like the mouth of some ancient beast. It stretched for nearly 2 kilometers in every direction, carved from the living rock by Velith engineers in the distant past. Once it had been a gathering place, a monument to peace and prosperity. Now it was filled with Drekker. Thousands of the creatures covered the cavern floor. They crawled over each other like insects, their clicking sounds merging into one continuous wave of noise. The emergency lights cast strange shadows across their armored bodies, and at the center of it all, something even worse waited. The Broodmother was massive. She rose 20 meters above the swarm, her body a twisted combination of the workers that surrounded her. Her head was crowned with dozens of sensory organs that twitched and moved constantly. She did not need to see. She could feel every vibration in the rock. She could taste every breath of air. She was the hive mind. The Drekker were extensions of her will. Without her, they were just animals. With her, they were an unstoppable force that had consumed entire civilizations. Captain Kang looked at the nightmare before them. On the far side of the cavern, he could see the exit tunnel. Freedom. Safety. Aha. Ship from the Galactic Union was supposed to be waiting. There, between them and that tunnel, were 5,000 Drekker and 1 monster. "I count. Approximately 5,000, Park said calmly. "Give or take. The exit is 300 meters past the Broodmother," Shin added. Medico was still working on Beak's wounds. The big man was conscious, but weak. "We cannot fight through that." "No," Kang agreed. "We cannot fight through that." The Velith civilians were crowded behind them in the tunnel. 50,000 faces looked at the humans with terror and desperate hope. They had come so far. They could not stop now. Ambassador Rena pushed to the front. Her face went pale when she saw what waited in the cavern. "There is no way around?" "No," Kang said. "Then what do we do?" Kang was quiet for a long moment. He looked at his team. They looked back. They all understood what needed to happen. "The Broodmother controls the swarm," Kang said slowly. "If she dies, the Drekker lose their coordination. They become confused, easy to avoid. Someone needs to reach her and kill her." "That is suicide," Rena said. "Yes," Kang agreed. "One of us makes the run. The others protect the civilians and push for the exit when the swarm loses focus." Lieutenant Park stepped forward. "I should go. I am fastest. I have the most explosives." "I should go," Shin said. "I can make the shot from anywhere. I just need to get close enough." "I should go," Beak said from the ground. "I am already wounded. I am slowing you down. Let me do something useful." Captain Kang held up his hand. "No, I will go." "Sir," Park began, "this is not a discussion." Kang's voice was iron. "I am the captain. This is my responsibility." He began checking his weapons, his movements precise and unhurried. "Yuna, you lead the civilians. When the swarm breaks formation, push through as fast as possible. Do not stop for anything. Do not look back." Park's smile finally faded. "Dohan, that is an order, Lieutenant." She stared at him. They had served together for 12 years. They had saved each other's lives more times than either could count. And now he was asking her to leave him behind. "Understood," she said finally. Her voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. Kang turned to Shin. "Cover me as long as you can. When I reach her, focus on the exit." Shin nodded. Words had never been her strength. She communicated through action, through her rifle, through the enemies she removed from her team's path. Oh, Kang said. Keep them alive. All of them. Medic. Oh, met his captain's eyes. I have never lost a patient I could reach in time. I do not plan to start today. Kang almost smiled. Almost. Beak. The big man looked up from the ground. Sir, protect them. Even if you have to crawl. The beak's jaw tightened. I will. Captain Kang walked to the edge of the cavern. Below, the sea of Drecker shifted and clicked. The Broodmother pulsed with dark energy. Sir, O called. Your communicator. It is still linked to the orbital system. Kang paused. He had forgotten about that. Earth had positioned the small support ship in orbit, hidden among the debris of destroyed Velith satellites. It was not a combat vessel. It could not fight the Drecker fleet. But it had one weapon. One shot, Kang said quietly. They have one orbital strike. On your signal, O confirmed. Kang took a deep breath. He had always known he would die in combat. He had made peace with that years ago. What he had not expected was this feeling. Not fear, not regret. Something like satisfaction. He was going to save 50,000 lives. That was worth any price. For Earth, he said. Then he ran. Kang moved faster than any normal human should be able to move. He had trained for decades, pushed his body beyond its limits, rebuilt himself after injuries that should have ended his career. Now all of that training, all of that pain, carried him forward. He reached the cavern floor, and the Drecker noticed him immediately. They turned from the main tunnel and charged. Behind him, Shin's rifle began to crack. 1 shot. 2 shots. 3. Each one dropped a Drecker that was about to reach him. Now. Park shouted. The Velith civilians surged forward. Lieutenant Park led them along the cavern wall, away from the main swarm, toward the exit tunnel. Beak dragged himself up and limped beside them, his body a barrier between the civilians and any Drecker that got too close. Medic O stayed at the rear, pushing the slowest forward, treating anyone who fell. The swarm was confused. Their mother was calling them to protect her, but prey was escaping. They did not know which way to go. Kang pushed deeper into the sea of bodies. He fired until his rifle was empty, then threw it aside and drew his sidearm. When that was empty, he pulled out his combat knife. The Drecker cut him, slashed him, tore pieces from his uniform and his flesh. He kept moving. Pain was temporary. The mission was forever. He lost his left arm to a Drecker blade. He did not stop. He took a claw through his side that would have killed most people. He did not stop. The Broodmother loomed before him, her sensory organs fixed on this tiny creature that refused to die. She screamed a command, and the nearest Drecker threw themselves at him in a wave. Kang fell to one knee. Blood poured from a dozen wounds. His vision was beginning to blur, but he could see her. He was close enough. He raised his communicator with his remaining hand. Earth, this is Kang Do-yoon. Target acquired. Requesting orbital strike on my position. Authorization code, Final Dawn. The response came immediately. Confirmed, Captain. Firing in 10 seconds. It has been an honor. The honor was mine, Kang whispered. He looked back toward the exit tunnel. He could see the last of the Velith civilians disappearing into the passage. He could see Park standing at the entrance, staring back at him. Go, he said. Though she could not hear him, she went. The sky opened. A beam of light descended from orbit, cutting through the cavern ceiling like a spear of pure fire. It struck the Broodmother directly. The creature did not even have time to scream. The explosion shook the entire planet. The cavern collapsed inward. The Drecker swarm scattered, their connection to their mother severed in an instant, and Captain Kang Do-hyun vanished in the light in the exit tunnel. The civilians felt the ground shake. Dust and debris rained from above. Park ordered everyone to keep moving. Keep running. Do not stop. They emerged on the surface 3 hours later. The sun was rising over a landscape scarred by war. But in the distance, they could see the lights of a Galactic Union evacuation fleet. Safety, rescue, survival. Park counted the survivors as they boarded the transport ships. 49,847 Velis civilians. 4 human soldiers standing. Ambassador Rena approached her. The Velith woman's fur was matted with dust and blood, but her eyes were clear. "Your captain," she said. "Is he—" Park looked back toward the horizon. Smoke rose from the collapsed cavern in the distance. "We do not know," she said. "We never know until we find the body." The tunnels were old. They had been built centuries ago when the Velith first created their underground transport system. Now they were dark, abandoned, and filled with danger. Corporal Shin moved at the front of the line. She walked in silence, her eyes adjusting to the dim emergency lights. Behind her stretched a column of 50,000 Velis civilians. Behind them came the rest of the human team. Captain Kang had organized the evacuation in minutes. The Velith were divided into groups of 1,000, each group led by volunteers who knew the tunnel system. The humans spread themselves along the line. Shin at the front, Park and Beak in the middle. Oh, and Kang at the rear. "First section clear," Shin reported through her communicator. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Moving forward, the civilians walked in fear. Many of them had never seen violence before the Drekker came. Now they shuffled through darkness, surrounded by the bodies of their neighbors, led by strange creatures from a planet they had never heard of. A young Velith child walked near the front of the line. Her name was Tiri, and she was 7 years old. She had lost her parents in the initial attack. She had been alone in her hiding spot for 2 days before the other survivors found her. She watched the small human at the front of the line. Corporal Shin moved like water, flowing around obstacles, never making a sound. Her rifle swept left and right constantly. Her eyes never stopped moving. "Is she a hunter?" Tiri whispered to an adult beside her. "I do not know what she is," the adult admitted. 2 kilometers into the tunnel, they encountered their first enemies. Shin saw them before they saw her. 3 Drekker were feeding on something in a side passage. She raised her rifle, aimed, and fired 3 times. The creatures dropped without making a sound. "Contact eliminated," she reported. "Continue moving." The line kept walking. The Velith stepped over the bodies without stopping. They were learning. Deeper in the tunnels, the air grew thick and warm. The Drekker had been burrowing into the earth, creating new passages that connected to the old ones. The clicking sounds of the creatures echoed from multiple directions. "Multiple signatures ahead," Shin reported. "At least 20. Lieutenant Park moved forward through the crowd. "I will handle it." She disappeared into the darkness. Moments later, a series of explosions shook the tunnel. Dust rained from the ceiling. The Vela screamed and cowered. "Path is clear," Park's voice came through the communicator. "Move quickly. I collapsed the side tunnels, but they will dig through eventually." They moved. In the middle of the line, Sergeant Beak walked beside a group of elderly Velith. Many of them could not move quickly. Some needed help walking. Beak had taken to carrying the weakest ones when they fell behind. A Velith elder looked up at him. "Why are you doing this? Why did you come?" Beak thought about the question. He thought about his younger brother, who had died in an attack years ago. He thought about the promise he had made at the funeral. "Because someone needed help," he said simply. A clicking sound came from a side passage. Beak set down the elder he was carrying and turned just as 3 Drekker burst through a wall. He did not have time to raise his weapon. The creatures were too close, too fast. Beak met them with his bare hands. The fight was brutal and brief. He grabbed the first Drekker by its blade arm and twisted. The limbs snapped. He used the creature's own body as a shield against the second. The third slashed at him, cutting a deep gash across his chest. Beak ignored the pain. He grabbed the third creature's head with both hands and squeezed until something cracked. All 3 Drekker fell. Beak stood among them, breathing hard, covered in green blood. "Sergeant?" Park's voice came through the communicator. "What was that noise?" "Nothing," Beak said. He picked up the elder again and kept walking. The Veleth around him stared. This human had just killed 3 Drekker with nothing but his hands. And now he was carrying an old woman like nothing had happened. What kind of creatures were these humans? At the rear of the line, Medico worked constantly. He moved from group to group, treating injuries, offering water, calming the terrified. His hands never stopped. His voice remained steady no matter what he saw. Captain Kang walked beside him, watching the tunnel behind them. The Drekker were following. He could hear them in the distance, clicking and scratching. They knew the prey was escaping. "They are getting closer," Kang said. "I know," O replied without looking up from the wound he was treating. "Can you work faster?" "I am already working as fast as possible without killing anyone." O finished bandaging a young Veleth's arm and moved to the next patient. "If you want to help, you could carry some of these supplies." Kang took a medical bag without argument. 6 kilometers in, they hit a problem. "Tunnel collapse ahead," Shin reported. "The main passage is blocked. There is a side route, but it is narrow. We will have to move single file." Captain Kang pushed forward to see the situation. The ceiling had fallen in, blocking the wide tunnel with tons of rock. A smaller passage to the left was still open, but it was barely wide enough for one person at a time. "How long will it take to get everyone through?" Kang asked. "At least 2 hours," Park calculated. "We do not have 2 hours." Kang could hear the Drekker getting closer. The clicking was louder now. "They will catch us before we get halfway through. Then we hold them here," Beak said. He was still bleeding from his wounds, but his voice was steady. "Some of us stay behind while the others escape." Shin nodded. 3 should stay. 2 should lead the civilians." "I will stay," Beak said immediately. "I will stay," Shin said. "I will stay," Park added. Captain Kang looked at his team. Every one of them was willing to die so the others could live. This was why he had chosen them. This was why Earth had sent them. "No one is staying permanently," he said. "We fight in rotation. 2 hold the line while 3 rest. When the civilians are through, we all go." The Veleth began moving through the narrow passage one by one. It was agonizingly slow. Mothers carried children. Young helped old. Everyone was silent except for the sound of shuffling feet. The first wave of Drekker arrived 30 minutes later. Beak and Shin held the line. Beak's heavy weapon roared in the confined space. Shin's rifle cracked with mechanical precision. Bodies piled up in front of them. An hour in, Park and O took over. Park used her remaining explosives to create barriers of rubble. O provided medical support while firing his sidearm at anything that got too close. Kang rotated through every position. He fought beside each team member, his rifle never silent, his orders calm and precise. Little Turi watched from the narrow passage as she waited her turn to go through. She saw Sergeant Beak take a blow that would have killed anyone else and keep fighting. She saw Corporal Shin reload her rifle in half a second without looking. She saw Lieutenant Park smile as she threw an explosive into a charging group of enemies. "They are not like us," she whispered. Ambassador Rena stood beside her. "No, they are human." The last civilian entered the narrow passage. Only the 5 soldiers remained. "Go," Kang ordered. I will hold them. Park grabbed his arm. We go together. They retreated through the narrow passage one by one, each person covering the one before them. The Drekker tried to follow, but the space was too small for their large bodies. They scratched and screamed but could not get through. On the other side, the team collapsed against the walls, breathing hard. Beak was badly wounded. 3 deep cuts crossed his body. O immediately began working on him. Can you walk? Kang asked. Beak tried to stand. His legs gave out. I do not think so. Kang's face showed no emotion, but his voice was softer than usual. Then we carry you. Leave me, Beak said. I will slow you down. Corporal Shin, who weighed half of what Beak did, grabbed his arm and pulled it over her shoulders. She lifted him with a grunt of effort. No one stays behind. That is the rule. They kept moving. 9 kilometers to go. The Velith homeworld appeared on the ship's screen like a bruised fruit. Great black marks covered the surface where cities used to stand. Fires burned across 3 continents. The atmosphere was thick with smoke and ash. Lieutenant Park studied the sensor readings from the pilot's seat. I count at least 2 million heat signatures on the surface. Most of them are not Velith. The Drekker, Corporal Shin said quietly. Captain Kang stood behind Park, watching the planet grow larger. The swarm had been thorough. In just 3 days, they had consumed most of the civilization that had taken the Velith thousands of years to build. The bunker is here, Medico said, pointing at a map on his tablet. Underground complex beneath the capital city. Approximately 50,000 survivors confirmed inside. Distance from our landing zone? Captain Kang asked. 2 kilometers. The area between is heavily occupied. Sergeant Beak loaded his weapons slowly, methodically. His hands were steady, even though they all knew what waited for them below. What are we dealing with exactly? I have never fought Drekker before. Captain Kang pulled up an image on the main screen. The creature in the picture was a nightmare. It stood 3 meters tall on 6 legs. Its body was covered in thick black armor that grew naturally from its skin. Its head had no eyes, only a mouth filled with rows of teeth that could cut through metal. Its front limbs ended in blades sharp enough to slice through combat armor. They hunt using sound and smell, Captain Kang explained. They do not feel fear. They do not retreat. They do not stop until they are dead or their target is consumed. Lovely, Lieutenant Park said with her usual calm smile. They also have acidic blood, Medic O added. If you kill one up close, try not to let it bleed on you. The ship shook as they entered the atmosphere. Anti-aircraft fire began immediately. The Drekker had captured Velith defense systems and turned them against any incoming vessels. Lieutenant Park's hands danced across the controls. She twisted the ship through explosions and energy beams, always moving, never staying in one place long enough to be hit. Alarm screamed. The hull groaned under the stress. Landing zone is blocked, she reported. I am taking us in hard. Everyone hold on. The silent wake dropped through a cloud of smoke and fire. Park aimed for a clear space between destroyed buildings, but a missile struck the rear engine at the last moment. The ship spun wildly. They hit the ground hard enough to throw everyone from their seats. Metal screamed as the ship tore through rubble and wreckage. Before finally stopping. Silence. Captain Kang was the first to move. Blood ran from a cut on his forehead. Report. Alive, Park said, pulling herself up. Functional, Shin confirmed. Minor injuries, O said, already checking the others. Beak pushed a piece of broken wall off his chest and stood. The ship is not flying again. We knew that was a possibility, Captain Kang said. He grabbed his rifle and moved to the exit hatch. 2 kilometers. Let us move. They stepped out into hell. The city around them was dead. Buildings had been torn apart. Streets were covered with debris and things that were once people. The air smelled like smoke and something worse, something sweet and rotten that made Medic O cover his nose. "Movement," Corporal Shin said softly. She was looking through her rifle scope at a collapsed building 50 meters away. 3 Drekker emerged from the shadows. They were even more terrifying in person than in the pictures. Their bodies clicked and scraped as they moved. Their mouths opened and closed, tasting the air. They had found the humans. The creatures charged. They were fast, faster than anything that size should be. Their legs carried them across the broken ground in seconds. Corporal Shin fired 3 times. 3 shots, 3 hits, 3 Drekker falling with holes through their armored heads. "Move," Captain Kang ordered. They ran. The streets were a maze of destruction. They climbed over fallen walls and crawled through broken buildings. Everywhere they went, there were signs of the slaughter. Velith bodies lay in piles. Some had tried to run. Some had tried to hide. None had survived. More Drekker appeared. A group of 7 came around a corner directly in front of them. Lieutenant Park threw a small explosive device into their center without breaking stride. The explosion scattered them like toys. "Contact right," Beak shouted. He raised his heavy weapon and fired into a swarm of creatures pouring from a subway entrance. The sound was deafening. Drekker fell in rows, but more kept coming. "Keep moving," Captain Kang commanded. They fought their way through street by street. The team moved like a single organism, each person knowing exactly where the others were, exactly what they needed to do. Shin provided cover fire from any elevated position she could find. Park cleared obstacles. Beak handled the heavy resistance. O watched for injuries and kept everyone supplied with ammunition. Captain Kang led from the front, his rifle never silent. When they finally saw the bunker entrance, Captain Kang felt something he had not felt in a long time. Then he saw what surrounded it. Hundreds of Drekker crowded around the massive metal doors. They scratched and bit at the surface, trying to break through. The doors were holding, but cracks were beginning to show. "We need a distraction," Park said. "I will handle it," Captain Kang replied. He looked at his team. "Get inside. Protect the civilians. I will join you when I can." Before anyone could argue, he was moving. He ran toward the swarm, firing as he went. His shots were precise, calculated to cause maximum noise and confusion. The Drekker turned toward this new threat. "Come on," he shouted. "I am right here." The creatures abandoned the door and charged him. Park did not waste the opportunity. "Now, move." The 4 remaining soldiers sprinted for the bunker entrance. Shin shot any Drekker that got too close. Beak cleared a path with his fists when his weapon ran dry. They reached the doors and Park slapped a small explosive on the manual override panel. The doors opened just enough for them to slip inside. They tumbled into darkness. Emergency lights flickered overhead. The sound of the battle outside became muffled as the heavy doors sealed behind them. "We made it," O breathed. Then the lights came on fully, and they found themselves surrounded. Hundreds of Velith stared at them. They were packed into the entrance corridor, frightened and silent. Many were injured. All were terrified that an older Velith female pushed through the crowd. She wore torn clothing that had once been formal. Her arm was in a makeshift sling. Despite her injuries, she carried herself with dignity. "I am Ambassador Rena," she said. "You came. You actually came." Lieutenant Park stepped forward. "We received your message, Ambassador. Earth sent us to bring you home." Rena looked at the 4 humans. Her large eyes moved from face to face. "4 of you." "Only 4. 5, Park corrected. "Our captain is outside creating a distraction." A boom echoed from beyond the doors. Then another. Then silence. The doors rattled. Something heavy slammed against them from outside. Dog Park raised her weapon. The doors opened a crack, and Captain Kang squeezed through. He was covered in green blood that was not his own. His uniform was torn in several places. A deep gash ran across his shoulder. He looked at his team, then at the Velas survivors. Then he turned to Rena. "Perimeter is secure," he said. "For now. We need an exit strategy." Rena stared at him. This human had just fought through hundreds of Drekker alone, and he was already planning the next step. "There are tunnels," she said slowly. "Old tunnels beneath the city. They lead to the surface outside the occupied zone. But they go through territory the Drekker have already claimed." "How far?" Captain Kang asked. 15 kilometers. Medic O was already treating the captain's wounds. Kang did not seem to notice. 50,000 civilians through 15 kilometers of enemy territory, Lieutenant Park said. "That is quite a walk." Captain Kang looked at his team. They looked back. No one suggested turning back. No one even considered it. "Show us the way," Captain Kang said to Rena. "We will clear it." The message came at midnight, Galactic Standard Time. It traveled across 300 light years, bouncing through relay stations and emergency networks, until it reached the Great Hall of the Galactic Union. The voice in the message was shaking. It belonged to Ambassador Rena of the Velith people, and she was begging for her world. "Please," she said through the static. "They are killing us. The Drekker have come. Our cities are burning. Our children are dying. We have no weapons. We have no soldiers. Please, someone help us." Behind her voice, the council members could hear screaming. They could hear explosions. They could hear the horrible clicking sound that the Drekker made when they hunted. The Velith were a peaceful species. They looked like tall rabbits with soft gray fur and large, gentle eyes. They were famous across the galaxy for their medicine and their kindness. They had never fought a war. They did not even have a military. When the Drekker swarm arrived at their planet, they had nothing to defend themselves with except hope. The council hall was silent after the message ended. 12 species sat at the great circular table, each one representing billions of lives. None of them spoke. Finally, the Torvan representative stood. He was a massive creature with thick scales and 4 arms. His species was known for their warriors. "This is unfortunate," he said, "but the Drekker are too dangerous. If we send forces, we lose them. The swarm numbers in the millions. This is not a battle anyone can win." The Khazari representative agreed. She was thin and pale, with large black eyes. "Our calculations show a 0% survival rate for any rescue mission. The logical choice is to mourn the Velith and protect our own borders." One by one, the other species said the same thing. "Too dangerous. Too many enemies. Not worth the risk." Ambassador Rena's face appeared on the screen again. She was crying now. Blood ran down her forehead. Behind her, a building collapsed. "Is there no one?" she whispered. "Is there no one who will help us?" The council was quiet. The answer was clear. No one would go. Then a woman stood. She was small compared to the other representatives. Her hair was black, streaked with gray. Her face showed no emotion. She was Director Chomai, the representative from Earth. Humans were new to the Galactic Union. They had only made first contact 15 years ago. Their planet was small. Their population was tiny compared to other species, and their technology was considered primitive. Most council members barely noticed when she stood. "Earth will go," Director Cho said. The Torvan representative laughed. It was a deep, rumbling sound. "You? The humans? You have one planet, one small fleet. What could you possibly send that would make a difference? We will send specialists, Director Cho said calmly. I request the Council's permission to deploy our Rapid Response Unit. How many ships? The Khazari asked. 1. More laughter filled the hall. Even Ambassador Rena looked confused through her tears. 1 ship, the Torvan said. Against millions of Drekker. This is a joke. Director Cho did not smile. Earth does not joke about rescue missions. We ask only for coordinates and permission to enter Velith space. We will handle the rest. The Council voted quickly. They did not believe the humans could succeed, but they saw no reason to stop them from trying. Earth was given permission. Director Cho bowed and left the hall. As she walked, she pulled out a communication device and spoke 1 sentence. Wake them up. On Earth's moon, in a facility that did not officially exist, an alarm began to ring. Captain Kang Do-hyun was already awake when the alarm sounded. He had not slept properly in years. Sleep brought dreams, and his dreams were full of fire and blood and the faces of people he could not save. He was 42 years old. His body was covered with scars from battles that should have killed him. His left eye was artificial, replaced after an explosion took the original. He did not speak much. He did not need to. When he gave orders, people obeyed. He read the mission briefing on his tablet as he walked to the assembly room. Velith homeworld. Drekker swarm. 50,000 survivors trapped underground. Extraction required. His team was already waiting when he arrived. Lieutenant Park Yuna sat cleaning her equipment. She was 31, with short hair and a calm smile that never seemed to leave her face, even in battle. She was the team's demolitions expert. She could make a bomb out of almost anything, and she could plant charges while enemies shot at her without ever losing her composure. Sergeant Beak Taiho stood in the corner, checking his weapons. He was the largest member of the team, with broad shoulders and arms thick with muscle. He was 28 and looked like he could break a person in half with his bare hands. But his voice was soft, and he spent his free time reading poetry. Corporal Shin Jun sat perfectly still near the window. She was 26, small and thin, with eyes that seemed to see everything. She was the team's sniper. Her record for longest confirmed kill stretched across 3 star systems. She rarely spoke more than necessary. Medic Oh Sunwoo arrived last. He was 34, with steady hands and a sharp mind. He had performed surgery in war zones, in crashing ships, in the middle of firefights. He had a personal rule. He never lost a patient he could reach in time. Captain Kang looked at his team. They looked back at him. No words were needed. They had done this before. You read the briefing, he said. It was not a question. Suicide mission, Sergeant Beak said quietly. Rescue mission, Captain Kang corrected. 50,000 civilians are waiting for us. We bring them home, or we do not come back. Lieutenant Park finished assembling her equipment. What is the extraction plan? There is no extraction plan, Captain Kang said. We will make one when we get there. Corporal Shin nodded slowly. Medic, O checked his medical supplies. Sergeant Beak cracked his knuckles. They moved to the hangar where their ship waited. It was called the Silent Wake, a small vessel designed for stealth and speed. It could not fight a fleet. It was not meant to. It was meant to slip through defenses and deliver its passengers to impossible places. As they boarded, a technician approached Captain Kang. Sir, the latest intelligence shows over 2 million Drekker on the planet's surface. Are you sure about this? Captain Kang did not slow down. We are sure. The ship launched minutes later. As they entered hyperspace, Captain Kang sat in the pilot's seat and looked at the stars stretching around them. Somewhere far away, alien intelligence officers were reviewing the files of the 5 humans on board. What they found made them pause. The psychological profiles were abnormal. The survival records were impossible. These 5 people had lived through events that should have killed them many times over. They kept fighting anyway. The Galactic Union had sent condolences. Earth had sent something different. Earth had sent the people who did not know how to give up.